Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for another one of our informational workshops. Very excited for our presentation today, as I am sure all of you are as well. My name is Rosie McCool. I'm the Deputy Director with Chief Probation Officers of California, and very happy to be here this afternoon with Fresno County Probation. Before I get to their introductions, just want to go over a few housekeeping items. One, you may have noticed when you joined, you were automatically muted. That's just to refrain from picking up the background noise. But if you do have a question throughout the training, do feel free to unmute yourself and use the raise your hand feature, or you can certainly post questions in the chat. As well, you will have noticed that this session is like all of our other informational workshops, or most of them at least. This session is being recorded, so wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that as well. And with that, I will get to our introduction. So very excited to have Fresno County Probation here with us to go over their design to date, I stress to date, of their less restrictive program under SB 823. And so with us today, we have Chief Kirk Haynes, the Chief Probation Officer for Fresno County Probation, Lori Willits, who is the Deputy Chief Probation Officer in Juvenile Institutions for Fresno County Probation, and Michael Farmer, who is the Assistant Deputy Chief Probation Officer in Juvenile Institutions as well. And so very excited to have them. I just want to stress that they definitely are here to share all of the information that they have to date, their brainstorming, and the unique opportunity, I think, that they were presented with this year. And so with this model that they're going to be reviewing with all of us, and really encourage questions and discussion and sharing of ideas. I think obviously I know a lot of folks want to be talking about less restrictive and are really looking to learn from one another. And so we hope this is the first of many other presentations from other county probation departments. So hopefully this will inspire others when they get an email from me to say yes. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Haynes.
All right, thank you so much, Rosie, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope that the information that we are able to share today is going to be helpful to the planning that I know all of you are doing now to prepare for whatever your step down or whatever your less restrictive program design is gonna look like. And like you, I don't want you to think that, you know, because we're doing this presentation today that we're, you know, leaps and bounds ahead of people or anything like that. But I think there just been some pretty fortunate events for us here in Fresno that allow us to be able to move some of our program forward just because of the situation of the infrastructure that we had available to us, and really just a good fortune and a blessing for us to be able to take advantage of the local opportunity for us. So I want to say thank you first to Deputy Chief Lori Willits and Assistant Deputy Chief Michael Farmer for taking the time to be able to do the presentation today. They're going to do the heavy lifting today, and I'm going to kind of sit back and listen to the expertise as well. But I did want to just talk a little bit before we get started about, you know, how we got here. You know, a couple of years ago we started working on what our realignment plan was going to look like, working with our subcommittee, and thinking about what different program components that we knew that we were going to have to build into our system, into our program. And even at that time, we really didn't have a really good idea of what we were going to do regarding a step down program, because we didn't have really a specific facility or really a well thought out plan about what that was going to look like, other than just knowing that, you know, within our secure perimeter of our facility, and you'll be able to see some pictures that'll give you a better idea of what that looks like. But just looking at the footprint of our facility, we know that we always had a plan to have a step down within the secure perimeter as people, as our young people are in our SYTF program and in our regular programming as well, would have the opportunity to be able to go into something that's a little bit less restrictive than what would be in the secure youth treatment facility or in a general commitment pod. So we've always had that ability and had, you know, different varying programs over the years. But what right now has given us a real opportunity for us to do some really intentional ways of being able to step our young people down from an SYTF into a less secure, still secure environment. And then ultimately, of course, working with our court and our local partners to be able to have an off-site facility that can be a step down that can provide all the services that we would want to be able to have for our young people to be able to prepare to eventually either go home or to have their own independent living situation, or to go to school, or whatever those different things that we know that we want our young people to be able to do once they are released and out on their own, and while we still provide support to them. So one of the unique things about Fresno County's facility, we have basically two facilities: our detention facility, which is like the traditional juvenile hall, and then we've always had our camp, which is our commitment program, both separate facilities, but sitting on one campus here in Fresno County. And it's on a campus of about 200 acres out here. And also on this property, we've got, of course, the juvenile facilities. Our juvenile courthouse is here. The coroner's office, believe it or not, is also on this 200 acre parcel. And then, some other partnerships with the sheriff's department, DAs, public defender, all those folks are here. And there's plans for them also to build the ag department to be relocated out here at this campus. So it's a really variety of things that are happening out at this campus now and into the future as well. Now, when Fresno County purchased this 200 acres, and it's on South Fresno on the Highway 99 corridor, but when the land was purchased about 18 years ago or so, this was all vineyards, pretty much farmland that was there. And so there were already some existing homes and structures that were here that the folks that were actually still working the vines, because even after the Fresno County purchased the land, and it still was able to be worked, and we had owners of the previous land. They were still working the vineyards and working the farmland. So there were still 2 or 3 homes that were on the property. What happened in the last 2 years is that the folks that were working the vines and those kind of things, they ended up selling those homes, not selling those homes, but really ending those leases with the county. And so the vines and the farmland wasn't being worked anymore. And so we ended up having like 2 homes that became empty. One is a 4-bedroom home, and the other is like a 6-bedroom home with a bunch of additions that were added onto it. And so utilizing one of the homes that you'll hear about today, which was the 4-bedroom home, we are able to do this work of building a step down program from that. And so Lori will talk in a great detail about how and some of the barriers, some of the good things that have happened, and still just some of the things that we still continue to work through in order to get the program up and running. And so that I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of how we got here and a little bit of history of the property that we're working in. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lori Willis.
Thank you, Chief. So if we can go to the next slide, Amy. Thank you. So as the Chief talked about, and this, I intend on this being a very casual presentation, just kind of talking through, as everybody had said, Rosie and the Chief have said, we are very much in the implementation stages of this. This is not done and up and running by any step, but by any means, but we have made some real significant progress, and I think it's pretty exciting to see what we can do. I do think it's really unique that we were able to have this house that was already on the land, and we'll get a picture. We have a slide of that to show you what the house actually looks like. And it's ironic. I was thinking back when the Chief was talking, when we first started talking about Secure Track, when it first came on board, and we were, had 8 months, as you all know, to build this plan out. I was we were having a meeting as we were talking about how we were going to build Secure Track, and one of our watch commanders here said to me, Lori, it would be great if we could build a house on the property and that could be our step down. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. It was such a great idea. And then within a year, we realized we actually had a house on our property that we could use it for that exact purpose. And so it was great because we didn't have to build it and it was already here. But I thought it was really great that one of our watch commanders was already thinking this way, because it is a different way for us to think, I think. So looking at this first slide shows us just kind of our structure or facility. As the chief was saying, we are off of American and 99 Avenue. You come in and there's the public parking and the courts are 701. And I just want to give, just so you can get a little bit of a feel of where we are. So if you see the big yellow number 703, that is the detention facility. So that is our juvenile hall. It is attached to 702, which is our booking area. So the kids are booked in 702, going and then moved into 703. If we detain them, they're moved into 703 and they stay in 703 during the court process. And, however long that can be. And then if they are committed, they move over to 704. And that's to the right. Thank you. That is 704. This is our commitment or our camp side of the institution. So when you look around this, you can see 704 is where I sit right now, actually. And then 705, if you it goes around kind of I guess it's clockwise. 705 is the school area. And then 706, 707, 708, and 709 are all housing units. So those are our housing areas. And in the middle is a big grass area. And actually, the next slide will show that. But this is our physical layout. So we are, when the chief talks about our campus, this is our campus, and how detention and commitment are, close within walking distance, but they are completely separate type facilities. So next slide, please. So this is an actual picture of the commitment area. This is not the greatest pictures, might have been summer, which is why it looks like we don't have grass in the middle. It's much greener now with all of our rain. But this is, again, going over the building up at the top between the two parking lots is the administration area, 704. And then you can see, again, going clockwise, the school pavilion is right there. And then if you stop this building right here that has the curve to the front of it, that is our cafeteria, that one, perfect. That is our cafeteria or dining hall. That's our eating area. And then you can see the units go around 706, right, 707, 708, which is where it says SYTF Hub and SYTF. That's 708, and then 709 program rooms. So let me spend a little bit of time talking about this. So the great thing about the way that our commitment facility is set up is that it was designed to be like a campus where there's movement. Detention, as you saw, was all in one area, and the youth attend school and eat their meals and do everything within their actual housing unit. They do have outdoor, we do have an outdoor area, a grassy area there, and they do have basketball courts that are attached to their units. But there's not movement as far as school and things like that. On the commitment side, the youth move from their housing unit to school. So they go every day from the housing unit over to the school pavilion. And they also go over to the dining hall to have their meals in the dining hall. So it is more of a campus type setup or structure, and that they are out and about going around. Attached to the admin area is also our gym and also our Boys and Girls Club. So when they go to the gym, when they go to Boys and Girls Club, when they're going to school, when they're going to dining, they're out and about and moving around the campus. Then of course we also do a lot of activities in the middle. We call the big middle area there is Play 4. That's where we do a lot of our Boys and Girls Club. We do leagues like they do the San Francisco Giants baseball league here. The kids actually get to go to a Giants game. They play baseball. They play against each other. The housing units play against each other. And then at the end of the season, they get to go to a Giants game in San Francisco, which is really pretty cool. They'll play soccer out there. They'll do all kinds of, and then the PE teacher, it's great because the PE teacher gets to utilize the field and the gym for all of their normal. So it's, a more normative PE type environment, school type environment. And that was when this facility was built 16, 17 years ago. That was the intent, was to have it, because this was going to be our camp. We closed down our boot camp. Everybody moved over here. And that was the intent, to have it be more like this kind of normative environment. What we've done with Secure Track is and you can see the SYTF and the SYTF hub. So those are going to be our Secure Track units. SYTF is our general population Secure Track. Right now we have 10 youth that are in Secure Track. And then also, as I'm sure most of you know, we are also a hub for sex offenders. We applied for the grant and we were awarded the grant. And so we also have sex offender youth that are committed to Secure Track and ordered into a sex offender treatment program. We can take those youth. So those two, our intention is to keep those populations separated, because we can do just a little bit of different things. Right now, there's no one in that. None of the counties have had any. We've talked to several counties, but we haven't had a youth from another county come, and we have not yet had a youth in Fresno County who's been ordered to do a sex offender treatment program and ordered into Secure Track. So, which has been quite, the timing has been okay, because there is a lot of construction and things that we're trying to do in that housing unit to get that ready for the youth. If we have a youth, we can certainly take them, but we're still working on some of the construction and things like that. For the general commit Secure Track youth, we have, we've done all the things in our plan that I'm sure all of you talked about, again, making it a more home-like normative environment, which is not always easy the way our facilities were built, right? So we did some painting in there. We've added some murals in there. We purchased some pretty significant furniture, which I think is really great. We purchased it through Core. It's more home-like. It's a couch, it's a love seat, it's ottomans, there are coffee tables, places for the kids to put their feet up, things like that. So we've done that in the Secure Track unit. And then what we're doing with the program rooms in 709 is we are creating, when the facility was built, 709 was high security back at the time, right? We had everybody, again, this was like 16 years ago, so the times were different, and we had a high security area. And so that in that area, they had classrooms in there for those kids that were housed in there. So we're taking those classrooms and we're restructuring them, and we're doing construction and breaking those up into program rooms. So this will be another area that the youth will travel to. They'll go from their housing unit over to the 709 building, the green program rooms, and they'll attend their evidence-based programming in there, their, ART, whatever, any of the programming that they need to do, they will be allowed or have the opportunity to leave their housing unit and to go to a specific room designed to do programming. It's not a classroom, it's not the cafeteria, it's not their housing unit. It is a program room, much like when you go to any appointment and the where you go is set up for what your needs are. So there's a lot of kind of construction that's going on right now in those three areas as we're getting prepared for all of this, and as we're building it out and going through all the red tape and all the hoops that we have to jump to get construction done. But that is the commitment side. So next slide, please. So this is a even higher up, I don't know how to say that right now, view of the campus. You can kind of get it. There's the commitment side again, there's detention. And you can see with the detention picture, you can see the middle in the square, that's where the grass yard is. And they also have a gym on their facility as well, a full gym. So, but if you follow the line, so this is what we call the secure perimeter, right? Commitment detention, that's our secure perimeter. If you see where it says road B, I don't know, Amy, right? Follow that down, all the way down the slide to where it says Jefferson. And if you go to the right, other right, there you go. Go back to where before the fields, go a little bit, right up. That's the house, right? Your arrow is right on it. That is the house that we are using as our step down facility. So and forgive me for having to direct the arrow. I'm not savvy enough to know how to share my screen, and I was too afraid to do that with so many people on this. So I'm talking through somebody else trying to get the pointer going. But that is our house that we will be using for our step down. So it is still, as the chief talked about, it is still on our land. It is still part of our campus, but it is completely outside the secure perimeter, which I thought was kind of a really unique opportunity. And again, something that we didn't have to build. It was already there. And you'll see a picture of it. It's in pretty good shape for the fact that it's been empty for quite a while, I think, for, at least a few years. So it's a great opportunity. When the chief talked about the second house, if you go further to the right on Jefferson Avenue, there's that house right there is the second house that's being developed for some other purposes that I'm trying to stay out of that one. I just deal with my first house on Jefferson, which will be our step down facility. And then you can see the chief talked about the coroner's offices over to the left. But this is all property that's owned by Fresno County. So next slide, Amy. So this is the front of the house. This is what it looks like as it stands. I think this picture was taken 2 weeks ago. Actually to this day, I think 2 weeks ago. So if you look kind of in the back of that picture, kind of off to the right, you can see a little bit of the facility in the background. But this is what this is where our house will be. So just kind of wanted you to see, this is not, we've had our facility folks go in and just kind of clean it up so that you could pull up to it and get into it and see it and things like that. But that's our facility. So next slide, please. So this is as it stands today, this is what the house looks like. There's the 4 trees in the front, a couple trees in the back, and then the trees off to the side. And as it sits today, it is a 4-bedroom house. When you walk in the doorway, immediately to the big room, immediately to the right is the living room. And then right above that is the dining room, just a dining area. And then the kitchen, which feeds in, if you keep going to the left, Amy, it feeds into the laundry room. That's the laundry, right? Washer and dryer there. And then that actually also feeds into a bathroom right there, right? And then if you go back out through the kitchen, through the dining room, and you go down the hallway, there's also a door from the hallway into that bathroom. And then there are the 4 bedrooms. And in that biggest bedroom in the back is that room there, perfect, is a second bathroom, so that would have been like the master bath of the house. And that's a bathroom attached to that bedroom. If you go back out and off of the living room or off of the dining room is also the garage. So as it sits right now, that's the garage. So that's the property. And we didn't go in and take pictures inside. I'm kind of now regretting that. Maybe we should have done some pictures inside. It's really all in very good shape. With all the rain that we had lately, I was a bit concerned about the roof and, oh my gosh, what was this going to be? And it has held up well. We didn't have any leaks, knock on wood. We didn't have any leaks with the roofing, and everything has held up really well. So we seem to be in pretty good structural situation with the house as it stands right now. So next slide, Rosie.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Lori.
Yeah.
We did get a question now that we're in between slides.
Yeah.
Just about will the step down house be in compliance with Title 24? And so maybe I know you're going to speak to this a little bit later, but
so we had, before we did anything with this, we had Craigus used to be our inspector. He's not now. Shay is our inspector now, but we had Craigus before. And before we started doing anything with this, we had Craigus come out and look at the facility and looked at it and he thought that it was fine. Whether, and I don't know, Chief, maybe you can address whether it has to be totally in compliance with Title 24.
No, it's not a secure perimeter. It's not a secure facility. So Title 24 will not apply to this particular facility. Their question, but the question is what regulatory authority will this apply to? Because it's not really an STRTP. It could be considered a transitional living home and those kind of things. So depending on locally, what kind of regulatory authority will we need to be able to have to be able to staff it and to be able to make sure that we are doing it within, whatever regulations apply, are some of the things that we're still working with the Department of Behavioral Health, DSS, Public Health, all those different things are taking a look at because this is really unique, it's new. And so I think that's one of the things that are questions we are still in the midst of answering. And then notwithstanding even looking at zoning issues that we had to be able to overcome, just to make sure that you could do this kind of work in this house based on how the house was originally built and zoned. And so we've had to work through our public works even to that degree to make sure that we could do all those things, on top of getting asbestos readings and all those kind of things that have been done as well. So but Title 24 itself wouldn't apply to this structure.
And Lori, there is one other question, but I think it probably makes more sense to get through these next couple slides, and then I can go to that one because it's more about when do you anticipate transitioning youth into the facility and so forth. So I think that probably lends itself to, I think it might be 2 slides from now. So
Okay. So this is the contractor's proposed changes to the home to fit our needs and what we've asked them to do. So if you can see, again, going in through the main door, we keep the great room there, the main room the same, dining room. What we did though is off to the right, which was the garage, is now an office space for staff. So that will be, it's a good size office space, and we added a bathroom in there so that staff would have their own separate bathroom. And then also there is a door there now, but there will be a little bit more formal door entrance for staff. We don't anticipate at this point, and in our discussions about how this is going to build out, we don't anticipate it being anyone living there. The staff on site will be awake staff 24 hours a day, but they will not be living there. So we wanted them to have their own space and to have their own restroom and to have kind of their own in and out, just a little bit different from the residents. So that space was created. The other change, if you go back into the dining room through the kitchen, we left the washer and dryer or the laundry room there, but then we closed off the entrance to the bathroom there. So what they did is, if you go back down the hallway, if you'll look, we created 2 entrances to the bathrooms from the hallway. So that is the first bathroom that you come upon is the bathroom that has always had an entrance from the hallway. But the second bathroom that's backed up against it was the one that had the entrance only from the master bedroom. They closed off that entrance in the master bedroom and they made an entrance from the hallway. So the hallway, the only way to get into both of the bathrooms is accessible from the hallway. And the bigger bathroom, you can see that circle in the middle of the second bathroom, that is our ADA compliance. So that is the bathroom that is ADA compliant so that we can stay in regulation with that. The other thing that the contractor did is looking at, this is a 4-bedroom house. We made it a 5-bedroom house by taking that master bedroom that was so big, it really was quite big, and divided that up and made it into 2 rooms. So now it's a 5-bedroom house with 5-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms, and then it has the office space and the bathroom for the staff. My intention at this point is to keep it, and I'm not sure if my chief knows this, but my intention at this point is to keep it potentially 8 people. So 3 rooms can double bunk, and then the 2 rooms can be single. And that would be, an incentive type thing. If someone wanted to earn their way into having their own room and being in their own space, they could do that. Obviously, I would choose the 2 smaller rooms, those would be the individual rooms. But the other rooms could double up, so we could have up to 8 residents. And then, so that is the way. So really not a lot. The biggest changes, I think, were probably the bathrooms and having to rearrange some things in the bathrooms and how those are done. But really, and then creating a bathroom, but otherwise, really not a lot of structural things that had to be redone with the house. Again, really kind of stumbled into a great opportunity for us to be able to be this far down the road. If we go to the next slide, Amy. So this is now the front entrance, again, an aerial view of the front entrance of the house. They created a circle driveway. They created parking spots for staff and for, employees, whoever, so parking spots, created a more formal walkway along the side of the house and into the house so that because right now you just walk on the dirt, you get out of your car and you're in the dirt. And so created some grass area, some tree shade areas. And then actually this slide, proposed shows in the back upper right corner there's that square up there. That is a big, I don't even want to call it a garage, but it's a I don't know.
The storage shed right now.
Storage shed, yeah. But we've talked about how we could use that as a part of some sort of educational opportunity where we could do classes in there or do some sort of hands-on type something that we could bring in there for additional programming if we needed. But it's just really a great covered indoor space that we could use outside for any kind of additional educational things. Next slide. So, looking at all of this, and when we talked about, okay, building this offsite facility that is not going to be, it's not a locked facility, it's on our campus, but completely outside of really where we function every day right now. How do we do this, and how do we go through this? And kind of one of the realizations, I'm a very simple person, that I realize is I thought about this in terms of my own kids and raising my own kids. When I look at how we deal with our youth right now that are in our regular commitment housing units, when we do movement, they move in a single file line, they fold their hands, they're not allowed to talk. It's a very regimented type of movement, right? We watch them or we escort them everywhere we go. We have our rec schedule every day that dictates every minute of their day and what they're doing. And it's a very controlled environment, which is what is needed. I'm not making any apologies for that at all. That's how we need to run the facility in the beginning. But if we're talking about taking those youth that are treated like that, and then all of a sudden putting them in a house off campus that they can come and go from freely, that there's not going to be probation staff housing, staffing it, that it's going to be much more like living on their own. Well, you wouldn't take your 6th grader and put them in a college dorm and expect them to know how to act. So in my mind, I simplified this to, it's like school. When you start with your elementary school youth, you have their day planned out. They come home at the end of the day and you have either things for them to do, or you tell them what they need to do that day, what's expected by the time you get home from work, and you have that laid out for them. But when they move into high school, you don't have to do that as much. They come home at the end of the day and they decide, well, what do I want to do? I have 5 things I want to do, but I know I have homework and I know that I have to shower at this time, and we're going to eat dinner at this time. And so they start to plan and develop their own independence and have their own thoughts of, well, if I don't get my homework assignment done, well, then I have to suffer the consequences tomorrow, right? But they start to get some of that independence. And then we move them on to college and say, you go to your dorm and you have your resident RA who is there, who assists you if you need help. But for the most part, you come and go as you see fit, and you attend your classes, and I expect you to get up on time to go to school, and I expect you to get up on time to do the things that you need to do. So we realized that we really needed that high school opportunity still within the secure perimeter. We needed to have actually a second step down within the secure perimeter. So because we already have elementary, we've got that down, we do that, but we need to get that second level where there's more independence, where they can be done with their school day, and then they get to pick and choose some of what their activities are after school before their programming starts, or maybe before dinner starts, or whatever. They get to have some independence and movement. And I know a lot of other counties do this already, but we don't do line of sight where we let them walk from point A to point B without walking with them. But we need to get to that point where you can move into this kind of this high school type. I'm not going to call it high school. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but in my mind, that's what I think of it as, where you transition into this to this living arrangement that gives you a little bit more freedom in how to dictate how your day is going to go. And that we could watch them walk from the housing unit to the dining hall over to the program area, but not walk with them. We don't make them walk in a line. We don't make them walk with their hands folded and not talking, where we give them a little bit more independence and how they plan and schedule their day. And then move them from, when they're ready, then move them into the college, then move them into the dorm or to the house where it is much more independence. We have a lot of kids, not a lot. We have a very robust, education program here. And we have youth that are attending full courses at Fresno City College while they're in custody. They do those online through courses, and we have a great partnership with our school and then also with one of our local CBOs, and between us and the school and the CBO work together to get these youth enrolled in classes at Fresno City at the community college. And so we have kids that are already attending college classes, but they're doing it from their housing unit on a laptop. But if we can get them to that high school stage or that middle stage of the housing unit and their day's done, then they can start to make some of those choices about what they want to do. Then if they go and transition into the house, then they would potentially go to school. So it just created, and wanting this house, it just kind of brought it back in. And we not only do we have to create the house, I've got to create another program in between there. So just created more work for myself, which was fantastic. And then next slide, please.
Lori, while we're transitioning to the next slide, we do have the question that I had mentioned earlier that I think might be a good time. The question is, how much time toward the end of the individual sentence are you discussing the transition into this program, this transitional living home?
And I honestly, I don't have a solid number for that. I think it will depend a lot on the youth. What will the youth's need be? Will it be that they don't have anywhere to go and that they are enrolled in school and they have, maybe they're doing a vocational program here and they're enrolled in school, and if they don't have somewhere to go, or they know if they go home, it's too much temptation to fall back into their old behaviors, and they're saying I need somewhere else to go, and they live there for a little bit longer while we figure out a permanent housing situation for them. Or is it the youth who says, I know that I'm going to go here, I've got a job lined up and I've got these things lined up, maybe I'm going to go to a different county or wherever, and I've got these things lined up, but I need just a little bit of time before I transition into that. I think in my mind, it will be more, what are the needs of the youth for how long that they're going to be there? And then and then of course, because, as we all know, they're still going to be getting custody credits even while they're in this residential program. So, what is their timing on that? And I think that's something that we have to figure out with each youth as we go along. The programming, to me, at this level, in my mind, I see it as being pretty light programming, because by the time they get there, if the youth have been with us, I think right now we have a youth who's, I think we have a 3-year, and I think we have even a 4 or 5-year youth who's been committed. They're going to be getting a lot of programming here. I'd like for them to be able to get out and into this house and be a little bit more, like maybe we just have some lighter kind of catching up type programming, not so much intensive, 3 days a week, an hour and a half a session, having it be a little bit lighter, but that's still what we have to develop. That's still what we have to figure out. So that leads us right into the barriers to overcome. Construction, there's been a lot of, we've been, like I said, and like the chief said, there was infrastructure things that we had to deal with, but with the house, the asbestos, the rain, we learned all kinds of how the water puddles around the house with all the rain that we've had, and where are we going to drain the rain, and how are we going to do that? And so some things that, we still have to do with construction, and then actually getting the construction to start. We've not, as you saw, obviously we've had the contractor come out, we've got these plans, but we haven't actually started the construction. And so that will be, that's still very much where we are. And then staffing, it's the chief's vision, and I agree that we don't want JCOs being the ones in the house with the youth. We want it to be more, like I had said earlier, like an RA when you go to a dorm. But who is that going to be, right? Is that going to be is it going to be Department of Behavioral Health? Is it going to be a social worker? Is it going to be a CBO? How are we going to do that? Who are we going to develop that with? I don't know yet. We don't know. And then staffing also, as far as when we look at building our high school level of programming, well, that's just my physical staffing. And for anybody who's been in a meeting with me, you know how much I cry about how low staff we are right now and how difficult it is to hire. And I know everybody's in that boat. Well, it takes additional staff. When you have as much movement as I would like to see happening on this campus, that takes a lot more staff than if they're just sitting in a housing unit and I can have 1 to 10 in a housing unit. That's, it's a lot more staff to keep these kids moving around as much as they're moving around. And a lot more just eyes watching them, even if you're not physically moving with them. So staffing is a consideration. I can build the greatest programs, but if we don't have the staff to help run them, then we're just kind of stuck. So that's a real concern for me. The RFP and the vendor process for the programming that we want to bring into all of, we have some programming already and we'll have additional programming, but again, building these lower level security, but higher level of maturity and needs and things like that, without all has to go out to RFP. And we know that process is painful, to say the least. And so that's going to be kind of difficult. Transportation. If you know Fresno is a big county that's spread out, and we are not close to to downtown or to any city. I mean, we're close to our Little Fowler, which is our little town just down the street, right? We're out in the middle of kind of nowhere, as you saw from the pictures. We're in the vineyards. So how are we going to do transportation? We're going to have to figure out some sort of transportation, whether that's through an Uber contract or, passes, or do we get the bus system back out here? That's an ongoing conversation for us constantly. What are we going to do for transportation for these kids when they get jobs and when they go to school and when they need to go look for employment, or they need to get to their, to wherever they need to get to their appointments? How are we going to get them around? So that's a big hurdle. And then of course the regulatory authority, right? We know that the step down is ours to see and have oversight of. But as we all know, the legislation is very open as to, well, what are the regulations going to be, right? It's not title. Well, I mean, I don't want to say it's not, but it's not a secure facility, and BSCC is a secure facility. And like the chief says, not necessarily Title 24, because that's a secure facility and this is not a secure facility. So what regulations are we going to have to comply with? Is it an STRT, more like an STRTP, more like an independent living? There's just so many questions that I think everybody has. I don't think we're unique. I think everybody has a lot of these questions, and I don't have any of those answers. Those are our, we're kind of all in the same boat of, I don't know how a lot of this is going to roll out, but that's just some of the, and I'm sure there will be more barriers that we will come across as we move further down the road. But that's it. That's our house. That's our facility. And I talked a lot.
Thank you. I just had a couple things, Rosie, if I can just give a little bit of clarity to some of what, and good job, Lori. Thank you. Appreciate, really thorough. But when it comes to, staffing the program, one of the things that we know that we're going to have to do is to work on an agreement to staff this program. And so Lori is right. I had no intention on having our juvenile correctional officers be the ones who were going to staff this program. Even before we're running into the staffing issues, I thought that a program like this, and where we're trying to encourage independent living and learning how to become, embedded in like a normative environment and being able to navigate, all the things that our young people do, whether kids that I've got kids in college and those kind of things. So what can we do to make sure that we provide as a normal type of a transition as we could, so that they can go and thrive, whether it's going to be in school, or if it's going to be employment or vocational training, whatever it was going to be. And so we've always thought that this was going to be some work that we were going to partner with a CBO on. So what is that contract going to have to look like? How much does it cost? You know, I anticipate by looking at some prior agreements, even outside of our county, outside of our department. I mean, you know, when we think about some work, similar work that's been done, when you're talking about offering a 24-hour type of a service, you know, and I'm not sure what, you know, everyone's allocation that they've received for SBA 23, but, you know, just to do this part, we estimate, when I talked to my deputy chief over my administrative services, you know, we're talking about at least a $2 million a year contract to be able to provide around the clock services for this kind of an operation. So that's going to be quite a significant investment. When I think about all the work that Lori talked about with getting the house ready to go, including all the architectural plans and all of the infrastructure, it's going to have to be tied into our existing plant that we have here for sewer and water and all those kind of things. So we're talking about $1 million investment just to get the infrastructure of the house ready to be able to serve these young people. So, you know, thinking about, you know, those kinds of things, but at the same time, making sure that we can provide all of the services that are tied to what we're already going to be doing in custody with the programming that we've set up and stood up in the short period of time since we started getting our SYTF young people. The allocations that we all received, at least for Fresno, we need more. You know, I'm not sure if what we have received based on where I can see we're going to be in 4 or 5 years is going to be enough to be able to sustain what we're doing, but it's something that's certainly needed to be able to get, you know, these things that are going to have to be stood up. So, you know, transportation, you think about what we need to do to get there, whether we purchase, you know, some kind of vans or whatever to be able to move kids back and forth, or Uber or some combination of those kind of things in order to make sure that they have their transportation needs met as well. So these are things that I think that are unique to Fresno, because I'm sure many of you that are standing up your programs now, you're starting to see what those things are, whether you're doing something like what we did or if you're doing a brand new build. Those are things that we have to be able to plan out for. And then, you know, some discussions with our partners, right? Because, you know, when we first started to talk about doing this work, there was some reservations with some of our partners about, you know, is it really the best thing to do and to put this step down in this area? And we always thought that this was going to be the best place for us to do it, where it could be controlled, where we could really have some flexibility and not having to worry about some of the barriers that we knew that we were trying to do, set this up in Metro Fresno, how that, you know, would be a little bit more difficult, where we completely own this land. We got room to be able to grow it and to do it the way that we thought was going to be best. So I think that was all we had right now, Rosie.
Great. So I had, and we'll, gonna stop sharing the screens for just our Q&A portion for everyone. And so one of the things, just based on the discussion and the presentation, that really stood out to me is what Fresno is envisioning is really somewhat, and you can tell me if this is an accurate description, is sort of like a 2-tiered, less restrictive program model, where you have your SYTF, and then you'll have a less restrictive program that'll be run within the SYTF as a transitional sort of period, and then this less restrictive program that will be on within the home that you have just outlined for us. Is that an accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And the chief talked about this in the beginning. We have had certainly programs within the facility already that were honor, you know, like prep pods. We had a prep pod and things like that, where the youth earn their way into that housing unit, and they got a few more freedoms than other units did. But this would be, in my mind, this would be a much that kind of prep pod on steroids, where they get to have really much more freedom in their day about how they go about choosing their day. Because I my experience is only in raising my kids, right? I mean, when you watch your kids, you've got to let them start to figure out the consequences of when they make the choice to play the video game versus doing their homework. They've got to start to learn those choices. And I think that that's a lot of what our youth need here that they haven't gotten for whatever reasons are the myriad of reasons why they haven't. But it is so it's a step down within a step down kind of thing. And right, we're going to have to create that. And not to put anybody on blast, but I've heard that Santa Barbara has a great program. And so I keep telling the chief, we all need to pile up on the bus and go to Santa Barbara, maybe in July, and go see what their program is, because I've heard that they have a great kind of like pod like that where it's less restrictive. So yeah.
Time for a field trip.
Yep.
So feel free, if anyone has any follow-up questions, you can put them in the chat. You can use the raise your hand feature, or if you want to share where your county is sort of with your less restrictive program, brainstorming and design to date. And if you want to bounce any ideas off one another, certainly. I do very much want to thank you, Lori and Michael and Chief Haynes, for being willing to, share your thinking to date and the opportunity that you have and where you're at with the planning and how you're thinking through things, knowing that it's obviously not all complete. And so hopefully, I think it's just helpful for folks to hear what others are thinking and doing, and hopefully we can learn from one another. So do want to note my appreciation to the three of you for your time this afternoon. We did get another question. Any preclusions for who will be able to access the opportunity? Female youth, JSO, is there any, do you have anything? I know you had mentioned you have a sex offender unit for your SYTF. Do you envision any of that for the less restrictive, or will it be available to all?
I think it will be based on whatever the population is at the time in the house. I don't think that I don't think we've not talked about that we would exclude anyone at this point. I do think it gets a little bit tricky when you talk about a female. If there are 5 males in the house and you talk about bringing in a female, I think that will have to, but if there's no males in the house or 1 male in the house and we talk about bringing in a female, then I think those are different scenarios. So I haven't really thought about excluding anyone. I'm curious about what the need will even be for this. Not that I think there won't be any, of course, I think there will be, but is it going to be a high need? Is it going to be a higher need than we anticipate? Is it going to be a lower need? I just don't know. I mean, right now, even our DJJ returns, we have had, everybody pretty much go home. Once in a blue moon, there's a youth that gets released from DJJ that doesn't have a home to go to or somewhere to go. So we haven't had that much experience. And even with our secure track youth now, and Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I sound like it, but he is the expert on it. I don't think we've had any youth right now that aren't already working on their family reunification and planning on returning home, is the best of my knowledge, correct? So, I don't know that I think we just don't know what we're going to have. So we haven't talked about excluding anybody because we just don't know really how many we're even going to have.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the questions that we've received. So I think, and so you envision, Lori and Michael and Chief Haynes, that some young people who will be in this program, some will be, seeking employment or on that track, and some will be maybe continuing their college education. Do you foresee a scenario where the individuals who are in this program, if they were taking their courses online, would be able to continue to access the school program through your SYTF, or would they and maybe you don't know yet, and you mentioned it will be very individualized, so whether or not they're accessing their remote learning from the home versus needing to go to the SYTF. I suppose they could do that from the house versus needing to go back onto your juvenile justice campus to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even the services that we have now, I mean, there's a transition connection to the young people as they're, going to City College or being able to access those services there. So I anticipate that we'll figure out some agreement with the school and City College to figure out whether, just so we can have continuity. If we have a young person who is already in a online class, then of course we're going to make sure the infrastructure is there for them to be able to continue it, so that they can finish it up. And whether they want to, go in person or continue online, we'll make sure that the continuity is there for that to happen.
And we did get another question. Do you have specific locations for internship work experience opportunities already lined up for your secure track youth, the youth in your SYTS?
So our school has 2 vocational programs already up and running. They're quite vetted and been here for a while. One is a welding program. We have a certification program here on campus. And then we also have a horticulture program. So the youth can already attend those things while they're here. And then we want to build out. We'd like to get an ag program. We're, right in the middle in the heart of it. So we'd like to get some sort of ag program. The chief talks about bringing in an animal program. I'm a little bit hesitant on that, but bringing in FFA or something like that. As you saw from the map, we have a lot of space. We have a lot of land. So I certainly want to expand out. I think we are really lucky in that we have a really great working relationship with our school, and we are blessed to have that. It's because, the schools they're not required to provide really much beyond high school. And yet our school continues to go above and beyond, and they're very excited about the college and the RPO, or I can't think of it. Anyway, the vocational type education and things like that, they're really, they're very interested in expanding that, and how can we expand that? I think kind of the catch-22 to that, though, too, is the population number, right? Which is great. Our population numbers keep going down. That's great, right? We all want that. But when our numbers are as low as they are now for us, it's hard to sometimes for them to justify some of the hiring and the bringing in the programs when it's just really kind of sometimes a handful of kids. But again, we have a really great working relationship with our school, and we want to extend those programs out and bring in more opportunity. And I think we're always kind of looking at how we can do that.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the question. And I think you touched on something that I know has been expressed as we've been doing some of our meetings and work groups with the Rising Scholars program, is just how do some universities and community colleges sustain the program when it's a very small enrollment. And so looking at ways to partner amongst counties, and are there opportunities to do that? So that's something also that continue to explore. That is the end of our questions that we've received. So we'll pause one last time in case anyone has anything else that they wanted to ask but did not have an opportunity to do so. And again, if you think of anything after this informational workshop, feel free to reach out to me, and I can certainly put you in contact with Fresno County Probation, with Lori and Michael, for any follow-up questions. And I'm sure at a future workshop, in a couple of years, we can have them back and see how things are going. But do really, again, I want to just express my appreciation to the 3 of you for making your time this afternoon to share with us the great work that you're doing and what will also come from that into the future. And so I will thank everyone for your time this afternoon, and look forward to seeing you on one of our next sessions. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.